Hello, how are you doing? I have a big pile of brand new books that have just been published in June that I'm eager to discuss. These are a mixture of books that publishers have kindly sent me and some others I've gone out and bought myself. It was just Independent Bookshop Week here in the UK, so I'd love to hear if you have read any of these books or if you're interested in reading any of them now. Also, this video is very kindly sponsored by the wonderful company Serious Readers that create excellent reading lights. So I'll discuss more about them in a few minutes. Now, first off, there is a short novel called A Leopard Skin Hat by Anne Serre. This is a French novel translated by Mark Hutchinson. And this story follows the narrator's relationship and friendship over a long period of time with a woman who is suffering from profound psychological disorders. And it's about how in these friendships, it vacillates quickly between hope and despair, trying to deal with these really difficult issues. And also, I think this novel takes an innovative form to tell its story, and I think it sounds really good. Boy with a Black Rooster by Stefanie vor Schulte. And this novel is kind of like a modern-day fairy tale following an 11-year-old boy who feels very alienated from everyone else in his village. He has a very close friend of a rooster, and he embarks on a journey to try to recover a kidnapped child. And he travels through a landscape that's been ravaged by war and famine. It's been likened to the work of Angela Carter, and I think this sounds wonderful. Next, I have a couple of short story collections that sound really innovative, and I don't read all that much short fiction. I've been wanting to read more, and these sound really good. So first off, there is Asa, the Girl Who Turned Into a Pair of Chopsticks by Natsuko Imamura, and these stories are described as dark and slightly surreal in that the stories begin in a place that seems very reasonable, but then by the story's end, it's gone someplace really wild and wonderful. The Unreliable Nature Writer by Carroll, who's an award-winning author, and a lot of these short stories deal with the climate crisis and environmental change, looking how it affects the world at a broader level, but also through a personal lens of different characters in different situations. Cairn by Kathleen Jamie, who is a Scottish author, and when she was reaching her 60th birthday, she created this collection of pieces which are a mixture of personal notes and prose poems and essays looking at the natural world, but also her personal history and projections into the future and the state of the world around her. And I love collections that use a kind of different form to tell the story of a person's life, but also reflecting the world like through that personal lens. It kind of makes me think of the work of Annie Dillard, who I absolutely love. Private Rites by Julia Armfield. This is a story set in the future when the country and world has been ravaged by constant rain, and it follows the story of three sisters whose father was an architect that kind of mapped out and navigated this newly structured world that has been so affected and changed, and about how they reside in this large glass mansion and still feel his influence upon their lives in a quite like dark and sinister way. This sounds so good, and I've really enjoyed reading Julia Armfield's fiction in the past, both her short fiction and her previous novel, which was so good. As I mentioned in the beginning, this video is very kindly sponsored by Serious Readers, a wonderful company that creates excellent indoor reading lights. I've been using this, my high definition light from Serious Readers, for over a year and a half now, and I use it really frequently, especially in the middle of the night when I wake up and I want to read something to lull myself back to sleep. And I want to show you one of my secret treasures that I keep here by my lamp, which is this anthology, Night Walks, compiled by Joyce Carroll Oates, which is a collection of essays by a whole range of authors discussing that strange experience of being conscious in the middle of the night when everyone else is asleep. So I need the right kind of reading material, and I need the right reading lamp. And my Serious Reader's light is so good for that because the light feels really warm and natural, and I can adjust it to be as dim or as bright as I want it to be. And also the neck is really easy to adjust and focus the light exactly where I want it. So if you are looking for a really reliable new reading light, I'd really recommend Serious Readers, and I'll put a link in the description below so you can check them out. And if you decide to buy one, I have a special offer for you. Be sure to enter the offer code ERIC24, as this will save you £100 on a high definition light and give you free shipping within the UK. So let me know if you do end up purchasing a lamp. But for now, back to the books. Things Don't Break on Their Own by Sarah Easter Collins. This is a novel about a woman who is still grieving for the loss of her sister, who disappeared 25 years ago, and she still believes that her sister is still out there. But during one dinner party, memories are brought to the surface by a number of different people, and some new information is revealed. And I love a disastrous dinner party scene in a novel, so I'm really interested to see how this plays out. Next, I have a couple of nonfiction books, which are very different from each other, but which I think both sound really interesting. So first, there is Straight Acting by Will Tosh, which looks at the queer life of Shakespeare, but also the queer culture of that time of Elizabethan England, and looking upon how this influenced both his personal life and his work, his plays and his poetry. And I think that sounds so fascinating. Mapmatics by Paulina Rowinska. This is looking at the history of geography and how maps have been formed through mathematics over time, and how often this is inexact or just getting a kind of estimation for the borders of things, but also how this has impacted our culture of different regions and countries that have been shaped by maps over time. I have a couple new books from independent publisher Sagging Meniscus. So first off, there is Like It Matters by Lee Klein, which is a novel about a group of men that meet every Bloomsday in a pub to drink and talk about writing and the influence of Ulysses upon their lives, and how it both inspires them to create new work, but also hinders them because of this like monumental creation, which feels like you can't create anything that compares to Ulysses, but also they spend most of their lives drinking rather than writing. Winston Hewlett's Impotence by P.J. Blumenthal. This is a novel about a wealthy and disaffected man in the 1970s in California who wakes up one morning to find that he can't do it anymore. And he embarks on a very strange quest to a number of odd venues in search of answers. And this culminates in Disneyland, where he is being chased by a group of murderous goofies. This sounds so strange and absurd. This is Fine by Poorna Bell. This is a novel about a woman in her nearing middle age who's been married for a long time, but just feels like she's settled for this relationship rather than actively being glad to be in it anymore. And also her niece has reached a kind of crisis point. So one summer she goes away with her niece in a kind of impromptu drug rehabilitation session, but also trying to bond with this niece of hers who she's never really known all that well. And it's about their connection with each other and trying to decide how they want to live their lives going forward. The Ballad of Jacquotte Delahaye by Briony Cameron. This is a novel about one of the few female pirates of the 17th century, and it begins with Delahaye as she is facing execution, and then it backtracks to follow her adventures and life on the high seas and through the Caribbean, and her many experiences and her love for another woman. This sounds like a fantastic adventure story. Death in the Air by Ram Muralii. This is a whodunit murder mystery set in a luxury resort in the Indian Himalayas, following a young man who's lost his job and who's staying at this hotel for some much needed rest and relaxation when a wealthy woman is found dead, and there's a whole mystery of what happened to her, whether it was one of the residents or the people that worked there. So this is a kind of ode to Agatha Christie, but is also looking at issues to do with culture and community and economic disparity. The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands by Sarah Brooks. This is a novel that takes place in the 19th century on board a train that travels from Beijing to Moscow, transporting both goods and people, and it follows a number of people that are traveling to the Great Moscow Exhibition, but the train isn't as safe as they've been led to believe, and so it follows this very adventurous story. And finally, there is the new novel by Kevin Kwan called Lies and Weddings. He is the author of the really big bestseller Crazy Rich Asians, and this follows a man in Britain who's a future earl, but who is drowning in debt, and his mother tells him that he must, at his sister's wedding, meet a wealthy woman to marry and to then restore his fortune. And so following that journey, I've never read Crazy Rich Asians, but it sounds really fun, and this just sounds like a really great, pleasurable, like summer read that'll just be really silly, good fun, and it's kind of meant to be a kind of like modern, like not Jane, I was going to say Jane Eyre, but Jane Austen type story of upper class life and relationships like this. So those are all of the books that I want to talk about. I'd love to know if you want to read any of these books, if you're interested in them, or if you have read any of them, let me know what you think about them and what I should prioritize reading. But I'd also love to hear if you've got any other books recently that you're looking forward to reading. But I hope you have a lovely day and are reading some good things. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.